It means that they're not actually following, or anyway, not understanding what's happening in the world. I mean, they're probably smart. They probably have intelligence, but their intelligence has been short-circuited by propaganda. Their intelligence has been paralyzed by propaganda. Because being defeatist and being pessimistic means that you know that there are problems, you know what the problems are, and you know who is causing the problems, but you think that the problems can't be solved, and you think that the problem maker can't be stopped. That's what happens when intelligent people are drugged by the narcotic of indoctrination. And, just like with drugs, different people have different reactions. Well, intelligent people, moral people, principled people, decent people, they react one way. That's the way they react. They get depressed, they get stressed, they feel despondent. They can see what's wrong, but they can't see any hope of making things better because of the propaganda. And then they take that same approach to activism with that same mindset. They may be activists, they probably are activists, but they're largely being activists just to relieve their own tension, their own stress, to ease their minds in some way. They do symbolic activism, but inside, they feel like they're just shouting at the wind, like they're doing something that's futile. They're activists because of their own moral character, but not out of any realistic expectation of succeeding, because the propaganda has made them think it's impossible. That's the intelligent person, the decent person on the drug of indoctrination. That's how it usually manifests with them. The unintelligent and the indecent person on the drug of indoctrination just sides with power. They believe in the supremacy of power, and they believe that with power, automatically, it comes with moral legitimacy. So, of course, when we're talking about the problem maker, we're talking about America. If you're talking about world politics. So the intelligent person, under the influence of propaganda, knows that America is criminal. They know that America is criminal, but they feel that nothing can ever really change. They feel that nothing will ever truly be done about it. And the idiot, under the influence of propaganda, believes that America is wonderful. He doesn't believe that they're criminal. He believes that they're virtuous, and he believes that anyone and everyone who opposes America must be evil and wicked and tyrannical, and they must hate liberty and justice and goodness and all of those things. And they also believe that no one will ever be able to defeat America. They believe that everyone will be mowed down who opposes the United States of America. That's the unintelligent person. So they're not pessimistic, they're optimistic. They're ignorantly blissful, and they're full of hope, and they're full of pride, and so on. But the intelligent person feels overwhelmed. They feel distressed, and they feel guilty, and they feel pessimistic, and they feel hopeless. So you see, both of them have a different reaction to the drug of propaganda. But what they have in common is they both have the fundamental belief in America's unquestionable, unchallengeable supremacy. And again, just like someone on narcotics, just like someone who's drunk or who's on pills or what have you, just like someone who is intoxicated, someone who is under the influence of propaganda, they can't think straight. Their judgment is impaired. Their discernment is impaired. Their ability to fully comprehend, their ability to think properly, to perceive things properly is crippled. It dulls their analytical skills, and it dulls their observational skills. They can't process information correctly. They can't process information effectively. So the good news is, if you feel depressed, if you're a person who feels depressed, you feel hopeless or what have you, it most likely means that you are an intelligent, moral person. But the bad news is, it also means that you are under the influence of indoctrination and propaganda. And this intellectual and psychological narcotic has impaired your mind. It has impaired your judgment. It has impaired your intelligence. And that's actually what's causing your depression. So let me sober you up. Because the antidote for defeatism, the antidote for hopelessness today in 2025, alhamdulillah, is actually just objectivity. That's all the detox you need. Just a realistic, objective dose of facts. Because the facts prove that your hopelessness, your defeatism, and so on, your depression, it's irrational. Your belief that America is too strong, too powerful, too important, too rich, or whatever, that it's too great of a country or what have you to be stopped, that's irrational. It's not fact based. And in fact, the main place that America still has power is only in your own mind. And that's because the main power that they have ever had was the power of propaganda, the power of, Hollywood, movies, television, and so on. Well, they built a strong narrative about themselves. Yes, they did. It's a very strong and persuasive narrative. They made a picture of themselves as a superhero. They made their whole story, their whole history, a superhero story, a comic book. And the narrative, that story, that propaganda, got pumped into your brain morning, noon, and night your whole lifetime until America never had to actually be, in reality, America never had to actually be what they made you think it was because they made you think it was. I mean, they told you already, they taught you. This is a big thing in the West. Perception is reality. That's the first clue. Perception is reality. They grasp that concept very well. But you should know that anyone who says that, anyone who actually believes that, it means that they're never going to actually be what they try to make you think that they are. Because they're not worried about being it. They're just worried about you perceiving them to be it. Do you understand? Anyone who believes that perception is reality is never going to be as worried about reality as they are about the perception. And that's the case with America. They have spent more effort than any nation in history crafting their image while completely neglecting the substance. America is a perception. America is a perception and not a reality. From George Washington's false teeth to Donald Trump's fake tan. America has always tried to look like what they're not. But here's the reality. America did not become the unipolar global superpower because they defeated everyone else. They defeated everyone else and they rose to a position of supremacy. No, America never won global dominance. It wasn't through superiority. It wasn't through conquest. It wasn't through some grand triumph of strategy or innovation. No, they inherited it by forfeit. After World War II, the European empires collapsed. Britain, France, Germany. They were all too battered and too broken from the war to maintain their grip on power, their grip on the world, their empire. And then by the early 1990s, the only real challenger to America was the Soviet Union, and that imploded under its own dysfunction. The U.S. didn't have to beat anyone to claim the throne. They just stepped in when the previous rulers fell apart. That's not supremacy, that's opportunism. But what did they do once they had this power? They rigged the global economy in their favor. They built an empire not of colonies, but of financial dependencies. The three pillars of America's false power. First, you had the Bretton Woods. In 1944, the United States forced the world to accept the US dollar as the global reserve currency. That meant that every country in the world needed US dollars for international trade. This wasn't because the dollar was superior. It wasn't because American goods were superior. It was because America dictated the rules. The result of that was that the US then could print money without consequences. They could run massive deficits. They could fund endless wars. They could fund their military-industrial complex. And they could still force other nations to hold their currency. The entire global economy became a hostage to the dollar. I mean, we talk about Bretton Woods a lot. Maybe I should sort of explain it because it's a very good example of what kind of a friend America is to its allies. Truly, they supposedly rescued the world from fascism in World War II, but then they seized upon the weakness and the vulnerability of their own allies by shoving the Bretton Woods Agreement down their throats. It was ruthless. In 1944, at Bretton Woods, it's a place, the United States imposed a financial order that forced all of the other nations in the world into a permanent state of dependence upon the dollar. Those countries didn't agree to it because it was a good deal. Don't misunderstand. They did it because they were left with no alternative. Like I said, after the war. See, there's a theme here. You'll see there's a theme to America's dominance. The theme of America's dominance is the absence of alternatives. They only win when there is no competition. You understand? At that time, Europe was destroyed. Like I said, Japan was in ruins. China had been devastated. Even Britain, the so-called, British Empire, was bankrupt. The only country that actually emerged from the war, World War II, stronger than before the war, was the United States. Well, I mean, all of the other countries were fighting for survival. America's industries were booming. Its economy was thriving. And most importantly, at that time, they held 75% of the world's gold. So what did the US do? They forced the world to use the dollar as the foundation of the global financial system that we know today. Every currency was pegged to the dollar. And the dollar, they said, was to be backed by gold at $35 an ounce. This was a brilliant deception because the United States was essentially saying, we hold the world's gold. So if you want a stable financial system, just trust our money, trust the dollar. And the world was desperate for stability after World War II, and they went along with it. Bretton Woods was sold as a way to prevent economic crises, like the Great Depression. That they had just gone through that before the war. It was a way for the U.S. to lock countries into a financial straitjacket where they could never truly be independent, and it kept fueling the American economy. London had been previously the financial heart of the world, but after Bretton Woods, it was New York. It was New York. The British Empire was dying, and the Americans wanted to inherit its position. You see how they do? It's not by courage, it's by conniving that America extorted their way to power. But let me repeat, the countries didn't eagerly sign up to this system. They had no choice but to sign up to this system. The U.S. controlled the gold, they controlled the loans, they controlled the trade routes, and they had the military power. Again, not because of earned supremacy, but because everyone else had suffered the devastation of World War II. That was the beginning of America's military power, because the war had been fought in Europe and in the Pacific, not in America. The UK got bombed, France got bombed, Russia got bombed, the Netherlands, Belgium, Hungary, Finland, Romania, you name it. Denmark, Spain, Austria, all got bombed. All of them got bombed. And of course, Germany obviously got bombed. Italy got bombed. And Japan not only got bombed, but it had the atomic bombs were dropped on them. Even Egypt got bombed. China, the Philippines, India, even all the way down Australia. Everybody got bombed. Everybody except America. America didn't get one bomb, except for Pearl Harbor at the beginning, which wasn't officially even part of America at that time. It was a colony. Everybody got wiped out. All their economies were destroyed. Their infrastructure was destroyed, and so on. Manufacturing, everything. And then here comes America, like some ambulance-chasing shyster lawyer to a car wreck on the side of the road, clicking his pen and telling some half-comatose victim of a car crash, just sign on the dotted line. That's what America did after World War II. It's ruthless and predatory. That's your good friend. That's your special friend, Special relationship, special friendship. You thought he was giving you a lifeline. He was actually putting you on a leash. And if you resisted, if Europe resisted, well, you risked economic isolation, financial strangulation. Countries that went against the United States, against their financial interests, you'd find yourself targeted politically, destabilized, or even overthrown. Subversion, everything. All they had to do was call you a communist. If you don't want to go along with America's plan, they just call you a communist. But here's where the real fraud becomes clear. In 1971, as the year I was born, Nixon ended the gold standard. The entire premise of Bretton Woods, the whole idea that the dollar was backed by gold, was a lie. Now the dollar wasn't backed by anything, but it was too late for anyone to pull out of the system by then. So what did that mean? It meant that the U.S. now you don't even have to have gold now, right? So then they could print unlimited amounts of money, and they could impose sanctions against any enemy country. They could weaponize the financial system, and they could exploit the rest of the world without producing anything of real value. This was the beginning of the end of productivity in America, of real productive activity in America. Now that might sound good in the short term, And it has been very good and profitable for a certain group of people, but it's not sustainable. That's a counterfeit economy. You know, if you have not earned your dominance, if you have not earned your high status, if you have tricked your way into power, if you got into that position by forfeiture of others, well, you won't know how to act, and you won't know how to maintain it. And America hasn't known how to maintain it. You know, you'll be like one of those lottery winners who goes broke a year later after they win the lottery because you didn't come up right. You didn't come. You weren't raised for this. You didn't work your way to the top. So now their system is collapsing. You know, countries are waking up to this whole scam. Russia, China, the global south, BRICS, they're all looking for ways to escape the dollar, and they're doing it. And America knows that if the dollar falls, American power falls with it. So understand this, the unipolar world order was not built on American strength. It was built on a rigged financial game, and that game is almost up. When Nixon abandoned the gold standard in the 1970s, the system should have collapsed at that time. But the United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia. The deal was that the Saudis would only sell oil in dollars, the petrodollar. So now every country in the world would need US dollars because every country in the world needs oil. But this was nothing short of economic extortion. It's a racket. It's a mafia-style shakedown on a global scale. And of course, you can't separate this, what America did with Saudi Arabia, you can't separate this from the existence of Israel and America's support for Israel as a destabilizing force in the Middle East. America didn't just offer a deal to Saudi Arabia in the 1970s. No, they backed Saudi Arabia into a corner. And the tool that they used to manufacture that vulnerability, the instrument that ensured that the Gulf states had no choice but to submit to American dictates, was Israel. I mean, let's go back and actually understand that history properly. How Israel was designed